You can choose to live alone in the community, but you cannot choose to live alone in the graveyard. Good morning, bonjour, subahul khair, kwallafia, ekaro, ansuma, dasva, mimamachi. As usual, I have to welcome my viewers to my next episode. We take off from the last sentence. Luckily, someone was ready to sublet his empty room at the station for me. That's Konongo Odumasi Lorry Station or Lorry Park. So, paragraph 3 years at the station, and the GPRTU was increasing their rent. I was to pay 5 million cedis in advance. Where would I get this money from? I tried in vain to get an alternative accommodation. Then I was informed of Habitat for Humanity, a non-governmental organization concerned about housing the homeless, by one Dr. Ando. In fact, a retired medical assistant with his own small clinic called Safety Life Clinic. Yes, I salute the Americans. When we criticize, it's not the general public. The American government apart, there are numerous people who are willing to help. And you can see Habitat for Humanity, they were helping people. You come with your manpower or a few cities, they bought a land, first land in advance from the chief, either bought or compensated him. They will carve a land for you. You produce your items, wood, zinc, bricks, and whatnot. You pay some money, and then they will allow you to build on your own. After that, they make deductions monthly until you finish paying. And the deductions were based on the price of cement. As the price goes up, your monthly money also goes up. So Habitat, thank you, the Americans. They were very good. They were very good. But when we criticize, we just say Americans, Americans. But it's like American government, a very few minority. Today we are seeing it that no, America is not the American government. They are coming out in large numbers to criticize the government. Okay. In fact, retired medical assistant. He was very popular. He was very good. You used to call him Joshua Doctor. He also helped me a lot. I worked with him for some time, conducting laboratory tests for him. We're like senior brother and junior brother, he being senior. Dr. Ando I've done that. His own clinic called Safety Life Clinic. I was skeptical about it until I met a man called Matthias. Yes, I was skeptical about the Habitat for Humanity program until I met a man called Matthias, or some say Matthias, who himself a beneficiary of the Matthias, he was himself a beneficiary of the organization. He was an executive member and was already staying in his home house. But it was in the bush, like I said, bush. In the night you couldn't go there. In the night you couldn't come out of your house. Staying in his own house. That was when I got convinced and joined, full stop. As I write, I'm staying in a Habitat home, though there is a long way for me to finish paying. Yes. Then I paused again and went to 27th of April. To be a beneficiary of Habitat scheme, one has to register as a member. This attracts a small fee, 2 photographs, passport size, two photographs, passport size, are collected along with the filled forms. These forms are sent to America from what from where money is sent for the purchase of building materials, including cement. That's how I understood it. It might not be the case. That's how I was made to understand. The member, though initially, the member, though initially contributes with a minimum number of cement bags themselves. So before you enter, you have to get a minimum number of cement bags. Either you buy them or you something else. The member is required to provide labor, mason, carpentry, etc. Since most members cannot provide this labor by themselves, the executive members helped by finding artisans and paying them with money collected from the various members. Now, it was Matthias who introduced me to the organization, and so it was obvious that he should help me in this regard, being himself an executive member, as I have already stated. He has subsequently promised me 2 weeks and my house would be ready. You can trust Ghanaians with empty promises. That's why then I give it to Ghanaians. We are useless when it comes to those things. Pardon me to say that. I subsequently gave him monies for various jobs that were required. 8 months, however, and my house wasn't ready. I told you. How much time did he give me? 2 weeks. Yes, 2 weeks. 8 months, however, and my house wasn't ready. He was only interested in the money. I reported this during a meeting of the executive members. It was suggested that one Mr. Osei, a teacher, should take over and continue from there. Against him will be against his will, he was made to refund a small part of the money to me, that's Matthias, to me, even though that had been further reduced. So I reduced it for him. Okay, don't worry, you are helping me. Give me this amount. He did that over a period of about 2 months. You can imagine. That's the attitude of the Ghanaian. And we always blame Nigerians who are living here. We are worse. We do our school. We cheat you silently so that when you cry, people will hear. The Nigerian will give it to you, boom, and you cry loudly. What's the difference? He did that over a period of about 2 months. Wonders, we are told, shall never end. The carpenter, Mr. Osei, had paid to roof the house, was delaying in doing so. His excuse was that he had nobody to help him. Ridiculous, isn't it? Finally, I occupied the house, and that was Sunday, July 1st, 2001. So I wrote this letter from there, like I stated before. That was Sunday, July 1st, 2001. He forced the doors to the utilities toilet with, is it forced? Okay, I can correct it later. He forced the doors to the utilities, i.e. toilet, bath, and kitchen while I was in the house. I was the 5th homeowner to occupy a house, and there was nobody to my northern, eastern, and southern, to my north, east, and south. And there were only people living to me at the west. I was the last person, in other words. It was very fearful and lonely, especially at night. By 5 o'clock a.m., the last farmer would have passed by back to Konongo town. Yes, Konongo town was to my left. Mhm. Did I get this when I first faced? I was the fifth. Okay, let's go on. Let's go on. Konongo town. This was a farming area that the chief of Konongo had given out for this wonderful project by the Americans. Yes. There was no water supply for a source in the ground which I had to boil. There was no water supply. Oh, there was no water, sorry. There was no water except for a source in the ground which I had to boil before drinking. Later, a borehole was dug for us by World Vision International. Also, Americans were there, I believe so. By World Vision International, uh, a non governmental organization, yes. As I write, however, we still do not have electricity. We later had it. Then I continued on 5th of May. I paused there and continued on 5th of May. All this while, I had been running my private medical laboratory by name Somatics. You can imagine. I had to because I had to get some means of feeding myself. Mm. That I was managing. I had to move it as well from the lorry station to the habitat, a distance of about 3 kilometers, probably more than that. Mm. Like I've already written, earlier, the branch from the main road was not motorable to all vehicles, and the place was virtually uninhabited. Yes, I remember Dr. Wood used to send patients to me. Sometimes they would stop at the main road and go back and say that there was nobody there. Oh, yes, because when you look, you see only bush, but you have to navigate your way through. There was no proper road to get to my house. Can you imagine? Laboratory is suited. It doesn't matter. I think the first laboratory in Ghana was like that, outside in a tent or so before we got uh, developed enough to have buildings and whatnot. Okay. There was therefore no transport to the place. My job suffered tremendously. Once a while, a private patient would pop in. If no nothing at all, pregnancy test would bring her. Once a while, a private patient would pop in. In that case, they had to alight. They had to alight at the main road and walk the remaining distance. Those who had a vehicle of their own maneuver to my small laboratory, which also served as my residence. At the time, the only private doctor who would send me patients was Dr. Wood of AdaM Hospital. He soon passed away. Dr. Wood, may God bless you. May God bless your soul. May God have mercy on you and we the living too. This hospital was on the main road between Habitat and Konongo Township. Even then, he also had moved from inside Konongo at the low-cost area to build his own house at the place that I'm talking of. Even then, this was some time after his unqualified laboratory assistant died at the age of about 75 years. But how many cases was he getting himself? Yes, he himself didn't have many cases. Let him to give me some to, to direct some to me for lab tests. Did he have Uh-huh. How many of such patients would afford to pay for laboratory tests? Tell me something. Uh, died 75 years. But how many cases was he getting himself? Question mark. How many of such patients could afford to pay for laboratory tests? Second question. were how many were willing to come to me in the bush there? I suffered. I went through hardship. Yet still, how many were not diverted away from me? In other words, how many people were not told, don't go there, go to Konongo Odumasi Hospital? The hospital was used as at the same time as a private hospital. This diverted away from me, even though I had earlier made announcements in and around the town before moving away, before moving many around the town before moving. Many complained they hadn't heard. Many complained they hadn't heard it. They hadn't heard my announcement that I was moving to Habitat in the bush there. Others complained it was too far. Yes. In fact, I remember a young lady called Mabel could not wake, could not walk from the main road to my place, thinking she was rather entering into the bush. Yes, and she went back. She therefore left a note in an isolated house, church across the road for me. That was the last I heard of her. She had only come to Konongo to stay temporary for a course or job. That was in December 2001. Have I written this letter? This is December 17, 2001. And then that was in December 2001. When the going was getting unbearable, I went to nearby towns. I went to the nearby towns and villages to announce to people, mostly in churches. These includes these includes Juasi, or this included Juasi, Dome, Juansa, Patrinsa, Bonfa, and Atumasa, Koforidua, and Yaokui. My only my only My only Stelex pharmacy had complained of the distance and therefore was no longer sending me patients, even though taxis were later uh, shuttling between the Habitat and Konongo. When I went, there were no taxis, but a station was open there. But then, pharmacy, how much does he get? He was willing to send me patients. The patients were unwilling to come, and he told me, Mr. Alex, thank you. Hmm? Okay. I believe he's reading or he's viewing, shuttling between the Habitat and Konongo. Then, at the time, I had to be borrowing monies to make ends meet. Yes. I was, however, able to pay all these monies back by the grace of God. Lastly, I borrowed from Mr. Awuni. uh, I borrowed from Mr. Awuni for a talk show. Yeah, for a talk show and announcements on Virgin Radio in Konongo. Mr. Awuni was the head of the Ghana Institute of Languages in Kumasi. He had also been my tutor for a short period in my Form 2 in Navasco. He was good. He was very good. But rather, I offended him. I agreed that I offended him and he got angry with me. I've done everything and he doesn't think you should. He should. I don't. Anyway, he forgave me. I went and explained to him, but he's not very fan of me like before. Mr. Winnie, I apologize again. I'll apologize 1,000 times. You see, I'm reading about you. Okay. He had also been my tutor for a short period in Form 2 in Navasco. He taught English language. He taught English language in both schools. That's Navasco and the Institute of Ghana Institute of Languages. When matters got to the worst, I decided once again to try to get back into the government service against my wish and principles. With a great deal of secret opposition, I was later I was later directed to see one Dr. Steve Ogoyo. God bless him. I got a job. One of those who one of those who undeniably directed patients from seeing me had done his best to stop me. He could have occupied or he could have succeeded, but I had changed course to see Dr. Steve, whom I wasn't seeing before. Then I continued from 4th May, 4 May, 4th May, 4, 5. Mr. Akwesi Nyaku, by name, a health inspector trained in Tamale, completed his course only in 2003 or thereabout. He had told a long time patient of mine by name Selina not to come to me for private laboratory tests. She should go to the government hospital laboratory instead. Selina came to me without leaking the information to me. On another visit, a long time afterwards, she told me. In other words, when she came, after she didn't mind Nyako, she came to me. Then a second time she came again and told me she couldn't hold it back. I confronted Mr. Nyako with a witness. I went with somebody. I confronted him with somebody. He tried to deny. I assured him that I was sure about it because I had facts. He confessed. He tells everybody, that's what is according to him. He tells everybody who intends to go for private practice not to, but rather go to the government hospital. Who sent you? Who asked you to do that? Because of cash. When he goes to the government hospital, he then tells them, I've directed a patient here. Then they'll give him some change. Uh, hospital. Hospital. Selena did not ask her opinions as to where to go. Let me see. Let me go back a bit. He confessed. He tells everybody who intends to go to private practice not to, but rather to go to the government hospital. Selena did not ask her opinion as to where to go, or did not ask his opinion. I don't know. I can't read it. But Selena did not ask, I think, his opinion as to where to go. She only informed him as somebody she was acquainted with and had and and that was she was dissuaded. Pardon me, I can't read well. And that was how she was dissuaded. Full stop. Now that I am here, I understand why he did that. At the hospital, that's when I was hard up, I went to the hospital. That was when I discovered this. At the hospital laboratory, Selena would be treated privately and some form of kickback would go to him, Nyaku. These are the monies most of the hospital staff were earning in addition to their salaries. You can imagine. They were making monies there. I had refused to work there because my eyes were not open. To open it and also be chopping left and right. We didn't think of those things. I didn't think of those things. This even included people beyond the hospital from all over the place, and from inside the hospital as well, so that I experience, so that I, an experienced self-employed, should remain hungry. Of course, they get the equipment free, reagents free. They don't pay for light. They don't pay for water. They don't pay taxes. Just like that, you collect everything from the store. After the examination, they then go about sharing to people. The storekeeper must have a share. The pharmacist must have a share. The nurses must have a share. The departments, the various departments, and various individuals. That's what they were doing. And believe me, not, nobody cared. They will all collect and swallow. Oh, we've chopped dirty monies. That's why the country is not progressing. We tint legally acquired money gotten from our sweat, with evil money. God have mercy on Ghana. When Dr. Albert Wood sends me patients, like I've written earlier, there are those who would stop them before they would get to my laboratory, a further distance inside. I continued fifth the following day. Now, about 12 years earlier, that is around 1994, Dr. Boating, the pathologist at Cath, this is another area altogether. The pathologist at Cath, at Cath, Comfort Anochi Teaching Hospital, had expressed a strange desire to have me in the histopathology laboratory, like I've mentioned earlier. One Isaac, like I mentioned earlier, yeah, one Isaac at the Ministry of Health in Accra tossed me up and down for nothing. I had no money already. Go to Accra, come back, go to Accra, come back, go to Accra. He would never budge. Oh, people. I say he's popular. Those of my age know him very well. He had indeed told me there were no vacancies because freshly trained people had to be posted first. That was a lie. I knew very well that it was a lie. But what could I do? Various hospitals in the country were short of trained technicians and were indeed looking for them, like Dr. Boating, who was looking for me, who was looking for it to come and work in the histopathology laboratory. He liked me very much. I believe he, Isaac, is getting his share of God's punishments. I thank God Dr. Steve finally took me as a casual worker. I'll show you the appointment letter later. But unfortunately, Dr. Steve too, he didn't act well. So you like somebody and then the way they call you don't know what to do. Okay. Share of government's punishment. I thank God Dr. Steve finally took me as a casual worker. Even though I had 25 years of working experience. Of course, he couldn't give me a permanent job because it was beyond his power. He had to give me casual work. Then maybe from time to time, I could get the appointment letter from the government. He sympathized with me and I understood him. As I write, I am in a former laboratory which he made an annex for the. So I was writing this while in Konongo. Remember I said while there was an eclipse of the sun. Okay. Laboratory which he made an annex for the staining and examination of sputum specimens for tuberculosis bacilli. Of course, tuberculosis, it has to be separated. Very dangerous disease. He made a small room for me alone, somewhere in a secluded area of the lab. The untrained staff could not do them. They didn't know how to do EAFB stain, just staining and examination. Fosti couldn't speak English, but he can write. Right? You will know that it is he. And he could share monies, take illegal monies from people and share to people. He had his own animals, and a hospital laborer was the one cleaning those, looking after those animals in her house and cleaning them for him. People like to be big. The only technician, Amen or Amin, had gone to study in the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology in nearby Kumasi. He might be listening. He was the only technician there. Of course, much younger than me. Mm. I also began nursing. I also began running electrophoresis. Mm. The staff could not do it either, even though the set was lying fallow in the store. There was the component, there was a machine to run electrophoresis, but it was just lying fallow. Mm. Patients for these two tests used to be directed to other hospitals to get them done. So in other words, if you came to Konongo Odumasi Hospital, you had to do tuberculosis, you had to be directed to either Kumasi, Agogo, or what's this town on the Accra Road? I've forgotten it. Nkoko, yes. Hospital to get them done. Then from 5th, I jumped to 10th of May to continue writing. It was only after I had started work in the Konongo Hospital laboratory that I came face to face with realities, full stop. My private laboratory, Somatics Medical Laboratory, would probably never improve in patronage. If I hadn't gone there, I would have been going down, down, down until I died of hunger. Mm. In fact, it was not the only private laboratory in Konongo. There was a private laboratory within the hospital laboratory. And that is why, and that is my opinion. And that, in my opinion, was the leading laboratory. Yes. So there was a bigger private laboratory apart from mine, and that was Konongo Odumasi Laboratory. I was not the only one. That was a bigger laboratory. Hmm. Uh, and that, in my opinion, was the leading laboratory. At least two tests of the pregnancy tests were privatized. Can you imagine? They used to have pregnancy tests. Maybe one third they would do it for the clinic. The other ones they would privatize it. Nobody would talk because the money goes to almost everybody in the clinic. I can't make my life. I can't lead such a cheap life. I'm not dumb. I'm not born to do that. Hmm? May God have mercy on me, and may He continue having mercy on me. I choose to go hungry rather than doing certain practices. Hmm? Uh, the money went into the pockets of the laboratory staff, medical assistants, nurses, and other workers who directed the patients to the laboratory, like Nyako, the health assistant. Some of these patients come from surrounding towns. The situation was not different for other tests. You see. So Nyako always gets himself where he shouldn't be. As I read, he has a private uh, chemical store on the counter drugstore in Habitat there. And you know something? His wife, who is not a nurse but a warden, somebody who is cleaning in the hospital, gives injections in the chemical shop there. I heard it. I'm here and they're telling me she even gives injections. She goes to people's houses to give them injections. Nobody cares. I would fear of the dangers involved in these things. I myself can give myself an injection, but not to other people like that. But she being brave. Huh? The husband gets his tentacles all over the place, and then she herself is aware of it and be going out giving people injections. As I write, it is happening. She's not a nurse. She can't also speak English. But people don't care. Oil. We take dangers. Hmm? We take risks. I see it as taking risks. Hmm? Uh, some of these patients came from surrounding towns. The situation was no different for other tests. In other words, apart from pregnancy tests and tuberculosis, many other tests, malaria, they would take half a small amount of it, treat it for the hospital. All the rest, they are privatized. They would do the test and share the proceeds. And we say the government is not good. The government is not helping. Such people are those in government, and that's why it's not good. God says, don't bother about the world. If you want to follow the world, you will not make it. He discourages us from going by what the people of the world do. Okay, other tests. Then from there, I went to 11th of November. Let me see. In effect, the pregnancy test reagents were collected from the store, basically for private use. So when they go and collect pregnancy tests, it was for private use, and everybody knew it. Everybody knew it but they wouldn't fight because of the change coming to them. Pardon me. So were swabs or swab sticks for taking microbiological specimens. These were used solely for women's vaginal discharges. The best of my knowledge, ever was none ever was entered in the books. So they will just be performing that, and there's no record. And so first it takes her own share, lion share, and then the rest it distributes to other nurses, other workers in the hospital. As I read, it's happening. It can't stop. When you are used to sweets, you can never take anything bitter. Your tongue gets used to sweets. Then I say, now take something bitter. How can it happen? Phobia. Huh? Okay. The best of my knowledge, none ever was entered in the books. Business starts as early as 6 a.m. You can imagine, they were coming to work at 6 a.m. It never happens. I rather was going 6 a.m. or before then to see to people with diabetes so they could go and eat early, because they were not to eat until their samples had been taken. But they were going at 6 a.m. because they know what they were going to get there. And all monies were pocketed and shared. Fasting blood sugar cases from surrounding government health centers and private establishments and individuals, some of whom used to come to my lab, they all vanished. The three workers were Faustina Boachi, Kofi Ajiman, and Gloria Donko. Kofi Ajiman has since been deceased. He's not more. He's no more alive. He died. He died later. They pushed him to come and stand and fight me for no reason. And when I shouted back, they gave me a letter to go. I was fighting, but they knew what they were doing, and yet they fought. They would fight with people until people outside on the main streets would hear it and be wondering and coming to see. But I just shouted at Kofi Ajiman, who is a liberal. They said I should go. I'm fighting. Yes, I believe, I would say I'm blessed. It's only people who are well guided who face these things. If you're not well guided, you will simply join them and be eating and dancing to. There was a radio in the room when they were dancing and spending. I said, look at this kind of cheap life. Okay. Kofi Ajiman and Gloria Donko, I know she's still alive. First, I know, I believe. Kofi Ajiman, I know he's dead. Gloria was previously a cleaner, yes, and Ajiman entered the service as a laborer. but they were found in the lab, in the laboratory. So it's not only the private sector. Mm. Due to lack of staff, they were relocated to the lab to help. Faustina is a trained field assistant. Field assistant, their qualification is nowhere. That's why they are called field assistants. Their qualification, no qualification at all. So you can imagine, she couldn't even speak English. Meaning she was not trained to work specifically in the laboratory, but would be called upon to help in any of the departments. That's my understanding of it. eh. We have trained lab assistants whose duties are especially in the laboratory. Sorry, are specifically in the laboratory. Of course, they deliver better than a field assistant, mm, than a field technician who basically learn the lab work after school. That is even that is even if they are relocated to the lab at all. So you can imagine the things that are happening. I mean, you can't, I mean, some of us are not supposed to be in those areas, but God the Almighty with his knowledge says, go there, go and see. Moses was sent to very wicked people. He stayed with them. What is their name even? I think the Madians. Pardon me if I'm not right. Mhm. He sent him to Madian, the Madian people, who were wicked. After in field education, who basically learn the work after school. That is, even if they are relocated in the lab at all. So they might not even be in the lab. Let's pause here and continue another time. Thank you very much for listening. Illa Lekai, bye bye, and may God bless you all till we meet again.